What's up guys, Nemo Propaganda here. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to review the Fosi ZA3. Now, let me get something out of the way here. I don't like reviewing amps like this. I don't like inexpensive desktop style amps. They're not fun for me to review. I don't think most of them sound very good. And I'm a spoiled audiophile who tends to like stuff that is quite a bit more expensive. But I did commit to reviewing this. I accepted the review sample, so now I got to review it. But mark my words, this is the last time I review this inexpensive price category unless I find a crazy hidden gem. Then maybe. But let's do this review the way we generally do. Main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. I do have the 48 volt power supply, just so we're clear. Now, it does seem like there was a previous version and then there was some change made because some reviewer complained about some gain and some measurement. I don't know nothing about that. I don't want to talk about that. Guys, do not comment that noise in the comments. I don't care about measurements or none of that nonsense. All I want to say is I did see some complaints online about people saying that their model didn't get very loud or didn't seem to have enough gain. I didn't seem to run into that here. I was able to get this thing to play pretty loud. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Let's talk about some standout features. XLR inputs, you don't normally see that on these inexpensive style desktop amps, so that's kind of cool. It does have a single summed mono subwoofer output and some 5-way binding posts out back. Now, there's no onboard DAC, there's no tone controls, there's nothing like that. For the most part, this is a bare bones amplifier, and the whole, pitch, or at least what most people are saying, is this thing is like all about sound quality, right? So let's talk about what it sounds like. The treble, the mid-range, the bass, the presentation from top to bottom is exactly what I expected, honestly. Mostly a clean and clear presentation. Now, I've heard other Fosi amps in the past, and this one was quite a bit more refined than some of their previous models, like the ia255.1. That was a decent amp. It was about $179, and it could play plenty loud. It actually had a lot more features than this had. That had like tone controls and EQ profiles and all kinds of stuff. And it even had like a little display. But if we're talking about sound quality, the ZA3 does have quite a bit more sound quality than Fosi's older stuff. So I can totally get why a lot of people are like, hey, this thing's incredible. This thing sounds great. Yes, in this desktop arena of inexpensive little amps, Fosi has made giant leaps just within their own portfolio. So I could see a lot of people that have owned previous Fosi products upgrade to something like this, and you're going to be impressed, man. You're going to be like, wow, this is really good. I could totally see that. The treble, mostly clean and clear, decent imaging. The mid-range, again, good imaging, mostly clean and clear, not a lot of coloration in one direction or another. Bass control was decent. I didn't think it was anything crazy or anything to write home about. I wouldn't sit here and say like, oh, I would use this to run a subwoofer. Like, no. Like, it was good, but nothing crazy. Again, presentation was mostly clean and clear. Some, including myself, may feel the mid-range was just lacking a little bit in body and tended to sound just ever so slightly thin, but I digress. It is $149, so we can't really complain too much. Now, I did see a bunch of people on the internet saying it was like a giant killer and it was competing with like their reference equipment. I don't know where people are getting that from. I have no idea. Fosi themselves doesn't say that. This competes with anything 10x its price, and I personally don't think it competes with anything 10x its price. For example, the ia255 SA40 is $1,100. That's like 7-8x its price. That's a better amp, guys. Like, it is, you know what I mean? And that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. And by the way, that's why I don't like reviewing this category. Products get hyped to high hell. And what ends up happening, most of the people that watch this video, they're not people in the market that are thinking about buying it. They're people that have already bought it. They've already seen all the reviews. They're already all over ASR, and you're looking for validation content. You want me to sit here and validate your purchase? And that's not what I do, guys. I review products. That's what I do. I tell you what they sound like. That's it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's 10x or 20x its price. Right? If it was, they would charge more for it, guys. Like, they would. If a product competes at 10 or 20x its price and it's not priced like that, the manufacturer is doing something wrong or they're running a charity, guys. And last time I checked, most businesses are not charities. Anyhow, I digress. The performance is quite good. Let me be clear. It is quite good for this category. I will go as far as to say it's probably one of the best in the inexpensive desktop category. I've heard a lot of these amps. You don't see me review a lot of them because most of them suck. I return most of them, guys. I've reached a point I don't even take review samples anymore because most of them just don't sound good. They sound grainy. They sound gritty. They sound thin in the mid-range. I don't like them. This one is actually decent and can drive speakers pretty well as long as you stay within its volume limit. Now, what do I mean by that? Because this amp claims a lot of wattage. And if you check ASR, the measurements show it does have a lot of wattage. And I suppose it does. But what I discovered is the amp has a sweet spot. And if you're in that sweet spot, it's going to sound great. In my room, right, which is about 1,500 cubic feet, it was, say, up to about 80, 82 dB. It sounded good. It sounded precise. I had a good sound stage and all those things. Now, I could definitely take this amp and drive speakers to 90, even 95 decibels, ear-bleeding volumes in my room and for my personal taste. But the soundstage did start to fall apart. The amp did start to sound strained. And look, that's not crazy. Like, this is a little amp. It would be crazy to expect it to be able to drive just neck-breaking loud volumes. Yes, the specs say it has a lot of wattage. Yes, measurements prove it has a lot of wattage. But for best sound quality, you want to stay within its sweet spot. Again, what I found, and this is in a fully treated room, guys, about 80, 82 dB sounded just fine. Now, with all that out of the way, I'm going to do one comparison, and we're going to do this comparison a little bit differently than we normally do, and then we're just going to wrap up the video. So let's talk about the Fosi ZA3 compared to my favorite inexpensive desktop style Class D amp, the RSL ia255.1 that I happen to have right here. So I'm just going to tell you the differences and you guys can decide as the audience. So first, let me tell you what's unique about each one. The Fosi ZA3 is unique because it has the XLR inputs. It can be used in a mono mode, so you can get a pair of them and run like dual mono if you wanted to, or if you just had the need to like increase your power output and just drive a single channel, the Fosi ZA3 lets you do that. The RSL ia255.1 has some unique features as well. It has tone controls, the Fosi doesn't. And likewise, by the way, the unique stuff I said the Fosi could do, the RSL can't. Like the RSL doesn't have a mono mode. The RSL doesn't have XLR inputs, right? But the RSL does have tone controls, the Fosi doesn't. The RSL has subwoofer output, but I said the Fosi has subwoofer output too. Why am I bringing that up? Well, the RSL subwoofer output is dual line level output, which means you can run dual subwoofers if you decide to. You get left and right RCA output. It is by way of an adapter cable that is included. And then another thing that is different, the RSL ia255.1 does have a DAC and accepts USB audio as well as Bluetooth, whereas the Fosi ZA3 is more of a stripped down model. The RSL is a little smaller. The Fosi ZA3 is a little bigger, but they're both on the smaller side when it comes to desktop style amps. So those are the differences in terms of feature set. The sound is quite different between the two as well. Let's talk about wattage real quick though, because this is what's interesting. So the RSL is spec'd to about 50 watts a channel. The Fosi is like in the 150 or something a channel. I don't know what the specs are because it depends what power supply you have, and they have like so many different measurements. It's like well over 100 though. To my ears, and when driving difficult loads, the RSL actually not only had the more muscular sound, but it was able to play a little bit louder without losing its soundstage or imaging, right? The Fosi did stage a little bit larger overall, so that's important to point out. Just kind of at any volume, I did notice that. Add a bigger soundstage with the Fosi. The RSL soundstage ever so slightly small, but it held its composure to louder volume. So if output is a concern, that is something to consider. The included power supplies are a little bit different on each amp as well. The RSL being a smaller amp does have a smaller power supply. The Fosi has a much larger power supply. Overall though, the tonal differences are like this. The Fosi is all about clean and clear. It's an amplifier you buy because you care about measurements. You believe if it measures well, it'll sound good, and that is what you need to sleep at night and enjoy your sound system. This has been measured to high hell. It's gotten rave reviews from that crowd. If that is what you're into, just buy it. You probably already have. The RSL ia255.1 is a little bit different. It's made by a company that also cares about measurements, but tends to tune things by ear. So the result is a little bit different. The top end of the RSL has a little bit more air and space to it. The mid-range is a little bit warmer tonally. It's a little bit richer tonally. Now, some people might say that's not accurate. And I suppose there's some truth to that, right? So you're one of two customers. Either I want dead to rights accurate, the Fosi, the one that measures well. It's accurate. That's what I want. Signal in, signal out. Hey, like I said, if that's what you want, it's right here. $149. It could be yours. And then there's another kind of customer like myself and some other people I know don't necessarily care so much about the measurement. It's just not something we're into. We're more just into listening with our ears and making a decision. And to me, the RSL had a little bit more tonal richness in the mid-range. While it did stage smaller, I did enjoy just a little bit more overall. Both amps are pretty good. Different feature sets, and I'd say they're for different customers, honestly, at the end of the day. Look, that's the review. If you got any questions, holler at me in the comments. Don't ask for comparisons to other inexpensive amps, guys. I don't really want to talk about that, and please don't ask me to review other inexpensive amps. I took a community poll. I asked my audience. 81% of you guys said you did not want to see me review inexpensive desktop style amps, and I want to respect that. I did the poll. I'm going to listen to you guys. Only about 19% said you wanted to see products like this. So unless something's an absolute hidden gem, it's not going to be something I review. There's plenty of guys that review that kind of content already. I want to kind of stick to my like $1,000 and up category when it comes to amplifiers. Honestly, I'd rather even 2,500 and up amplifiers is kind of what I'm into more, but that's another story. Look, this is a wrap. Until next time, take care.